Hello and welcome back to my channel. Yes, today is Whisky Wednesday. This could possibly turn into a Whisky Thursday. It's been a long day and I'll tell you about it as we go. As you know, today or Whisky Wednesdays consist of me tasting whiskey or associated spirits, and we go through the process of discovering that whiskey and maybe getting some facts and figures and all that sort of wonderful stuff about the whiskey and its origins. And today I think we should just crack right on. There's so much information to give you. As the title suggests, this is going to be an interesting brand if you are familiar with it, and if you are not, this is going to be even more interesting learning about it. So without further ado, let me introduce to you Glenturret. Yes, Glenturret is, before I pick up the bottle and show you, because there's just so much to give you, let's just start with this kind of like super quick, very thin history lesson, and then we'll get on to why you need to know that first before we take a look at the bottle. So here goes. Glenturret, licensed in 1775, Scottish distillery, considered slightly contested to be one of the oldest distilleries in Scotland, or the oldest distillery in Scotland, primarily because they were making whiskey on the side before they were licensed, so they think we're the oldest. But a lot's happened in its history. It's opened, it's closed, it's exchanged hands, but there are some very interesting names during the process of then and now. So let's just get through this. So it's licensed in 1775. John McCallum took it over in 1845. We've got 1875. You've got Thomas Stewart took it over. Then you've got the Mitchell brothers in 1921. Then in 1957, I believe it was brought back to life by James, please excuse me if I get this wrong, James Fairley, and then it was purchased by Contro in 1981, and then what else happened? 1981, then it was purchased by Highland Distillers in 1990, and then taken over by the Edrington Group, if I get these names right, in 1999, and then in 2018, which is brings us up to date in relation to this bottle, it was taken over by the Lalique Group, which, if you are familiar with the name Lalique, you would know that these guys are super famous. And if you are a fan of daytime TV or afternoon TV, and you watch Antiques Roadshow or Bargain Hunt and all these kind of like antique-y, auction-y sort of shows, which are very popular here in the UK throughout the days, especially on Sundays, you'll know that Lalique always comes up. That's a Lalique vase. That's a Lalique glass. That's a Lalique this. And the name you're really looking for, turn it over, is Lalique. Now, those are the same guys who have entered the distilling fray and taken over this very distinguished distillery with an interesting history. And what they've done, they've brought something very unique to the table with this. Now, before we get to it, just a little bit more information. You may not be, if you are familiar with Glenturret and you've drank Glenturret whiskey, that would be primarily because you kind of are in the know, right? And you've kind of gone out of your way, you've visited the distillery, you've bought the whiskey, you've bought the Glenturret Legacy range, which is what it's now classed as. But what you may not be familiar with is that you may have been drinking Glenturret whiskey all along for a very long while, because at some point the famous grouse it is said that Famous Grouse, because they obviously owned it and they created this whole new experience there and it won awards and all this sort of wonderful stuff, Famous Grouse was blending Glenturret whiskey with its range. So I'm not familiar with what bottles or what it was blended with, but when you blend whiskey, you take another whiskey, you take another whiskey, and you blend together, you make a whiskey, as you all know. And that flavor profile, so you don't know, you may have been already drinking, or you may have experienced a portion or a fraction of Glenturret whiskey before. Now let's get on with this. What is so important about what I'm going to show you now is that Glenturret, with the influence and the cash of Lalique, or the Lalique group, have basically changed the face of the brand, and they may be carrying the same or similar age profiles than I'm just getting a bit ahead of myself, than the legacy range that many people are fond of collecting, and I'm sure have hoarded because they just go up in value. But this time around, they've introduced a master distiller to Glenturret. And this isn't any old name. This is none other than Bob Delgarno of Macallan fame. Now, Mr. Delgarno is basically attributed to bringing Macallan to a point where they're, turning over 140 million in revenue every year or so. They're basically saying because of him, that guy's got the Midas touch, and Glenturret or Lalique have managed to persuade Bob to get involved and start putting together these flavor profiles. The age statement might be the same, so you've got a triple wood, a 10-year. Well, we'll get to that, but in this case today, what we're looking at is a 12-year-old oak, a European oak aged Glenturret 2020 maiden release in a Lalique decanter. I'm very enthusiastic about this because these have become super rare, and I've managed to get a hold of a few, and today I'm filming late because I sold out, which is really nice. I mean, considering we only had a few bottles anyway, but I managed to get another one, and this is the one. And so I was waiting for it to arrive, and I want to show it off to you guys. So it's very in the whiskey world. If you, like I said, if you know, you know. This is why in lots of, when you spend money on whiskey, you're kind of spending it because you've educated yourself about it, or someone's made a really good recommendation. If you haven't, but you're open to it and you're curious, you're in for a really nice ride, especially with the Glenturret 12 maiden release. So let's take a look at the bottle like we always do. It weighs a ton. It comes in a beautiful blue box, and yeah, I mean, like the guys at Lalique, obviously they're master crafters when it comes to working with glass, and they've created this absolutely beautiful decanter, and the pictures don't do it justice, but there we go. There it is, Glenturret 12, and it just looks fantastic. I'm just going to try to give you a 360 on this. And it is a decanter, it's not your bog standard bottle. This is what makes it very different from the legacy range. Again, the the age statement is the same. So there's a 12-year in the legacy, and there's obviously a 12-year in the maiden. This is the maiden release, meaning it's the first release from when Lalique have taken over. But thereafter, I'm assuming they're going to continue with the decanter, but the liquid inside will be obviously like a second batch or a third batch, or they might even give it like a 2021 release or something like that. We don't know yet. So there you go. Yes, I'm a bit excited, a little bit enthusiastic, maybe over enthusiastic, I don't know. I just really like what's happened here. I like it when a distillery comes along or a brand comes along and just changes the game a bit and does something interesting, especially with all this heritage and the uniqueness. In relation to it, there are, it's one thing to note. If you are interested in Glenturret and the Maiden release, these are collector's editions. I would highly suggest that if you do buy them, as always, do what you want, but you know, the beauty of owning really nice whiskey is that you want to try it, right? Also, the second to that is that you want to collect it. So if you are going to go and start putting together a collection, it's a really great place to start with Glenturret, because they start really quite reasonable. So if you can get a hold of one at RRP, you're going to be, you know, have something that's definitely going to go up in value, especially because of the history. This is why I gave you that quick rundown, and what's happening to it now, and who's taken over, and what they've done, and the people, and all the names involved. And in the UK, I think there were only like less than 200 bottles available, maybe even less than that, you know, 100 bottles in total. So when it comes to this one, but it's always changing. So there's a triple wood, a 10-year, a 12-year, a 15-year, a 25-year, which is sublime, but that you cannot get hold of for love nor money at the moment, and a 30-year. Now the 30-year, if you can get hold of that, which I do have at the moment, that is a keeper. And what I will do is, if I can get it out of its vault, I'll show you what it looks like, because it comes in a beautiful handmade box and all that sort of stuff. So if you are going to start a whiskey collection and you've got some money, I would definitely say that if you can source the Glenturret range, that's a great place to start, especially considering where we are with it. It really hasn't hit its peak at all. This is just the beginning, so keep that in consideration. So otherwise, just buy a bottle and enjoy it. Now on to the drinking. What am I doing? So I've poured myself a really nice shot here. Look at that nice dram. Again, it's amber, it's dark. I love these caramel kind of color whiskeys. I don't know, they just feel more whiskey-ish. I don't know, I think this is just kind of like a programming thing. When you see whiskey and you expect it to look like this, when it comes out a bit pale, or you know, it's like but when you see whiskey and it comes out like this, and it just looks more appealing. Hence why a lot of organizations, a lot of distillers tend to add, so keep an eye out for this hasn't been done here, but keep an eye out for it, and they tend to add coloring, which isn't bad. It's a commonly practiced thing of a caramel coloring into whiskey. So after it's, if you know from our previous video, you know, looking at a few bourbon, if something is cut or watered down, which is always done to bring down to strength, to specific strength, that obviously changes the color, right? So what happens, and few haven't done this, or anyone that currently that we've reviewed haven't really done this, but they would add obviously water, and then to bring the color back to what it was, you can add a caramel color made from, you know, a caramel sugar or something like that. And it's done. They've got various practices to do that, and we'll get into that more in subsequent videos with more detail. But it hasn't been done here. This is the natural color. This is beautiful. This is aged in European oak, and why that's very important is that European oak tends to lend a kind of like spicy oiliness to the whiskey. So that's kind of like, you could say in here, it's kind of like the base character that everything plugs into it, just kind of carries it. So without further ado, let's have a sniff. Oh yeah, at first it might feel a bit harsh, it might feel a bit tingly on the nose, but it's nice. There's a freshness to it. It's definitely spicy at first. It's almost mustardy or peppery. You know, you've got that kind of like edge coming out. I don't want to say like English mustard. This is kind of like mustard grain. Like you've got that. It's sweet vinegar, but it's tame and tasty. There are fruity notes. What fruits are those? It could even be a bit tropical. Well, you know what? As a fragrance, you could probably squirt this on and get away with it. It's something very nice about it. Super appealing. There's a hint of caramel. I don't know if it's banana or plantain. Ah, that's nice. That's really nice, actually. I wonder if I can get this to warm up a bit, but it's very, very nice. I can't find the right words today. But it's definitely, you know what it is? It's cinnamon bark. That's the spice that's running through it. So not cinnamon, where you need. I'm not sure if you've experienced this, but sometimes when you go, hey, put some cinnamon in it, and you get this kind of like, you know, stick, and it's like all curled into itself, and it's kind of like a pale brown. That's cinnamon. Where then you get cinnamon bark, which is I'm very, very familiar with growing up with as a child, and grabbing it and just chewing on it. Where you know, it was in the dish, you just grab it, you chew, and it's sweet. There's a sweet spiciness to it, a sweet cinnamonness to it, and that kind of, I don't know if that's intentional or if that is even happening here, but that's the kind of memory or flavor scent, or the database, that's where it's triggering. So it's fruity, it's spicy, it's cinnamon. There's like tropical notes in there. All, oh, my mouth just watered. So there's a lot going on. We always know that the European oak cask, and it's very specific when they say it's European oak cask, you know, as opposed to any others, because it does provide that richness, and it is rich. It's definitely, there's a like my mouth's watered, you know, taking a sniff, but at the same time there's this kind of like richness that runs down the nose and runs down the back, and yeah, let's just have a sip. I'm going to come back to that because it feels like there's more in there that I'm not picking up. It's almost like a is it apricots? Not fresh apricots, but dried apricots. There's something like that bouncing around in there as well. It's very, very appealing. Something interesting really just something super interesting just happened. I can't describe it. It went from being there to then completely disappearing. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, it went in and it was on the palate, and it tastes of, initially you get that wood, right? It's woody, then it's spicy, then it's peppery, and then it just mellows out and it's gone. Like, it just went down so easy, and I can just feel it going down, but there's no harshness to it. There's no major takeover of the senses. It's just like, it's pure flavor, if that makes sense. Now, I don't know if that's unique to the 12-year-old, or if the 15 will have a bit more of a harsher profile, or harsher, I say stronger profile, or if the triple wood is going to be like this. I don't, we're going to go through that as well in subsequent videos. But now smelling this smells even more appealing. There's more in here. There's a sweetness and there's a sweet spiciness. There's a kind of like and I know that this is not something that they would say like it's part of their marketing material, But to me, have you ever tried, I know you probably have, but when you have, how to describe it, soy sauce, really high quality soy sauce, right? Dip your finger in it, and it's got maybe some kind of like seasoning in it, some, not even seasoning, like a little bit of spring onions. And you've got that, you dip your finger in it, you take a lick, and you get this salty slickness that runs through your palate that makes it water, and you're like, oh, that's really appealing. And then you dip your dumpling and off you go, right? Or you have it with your sushi. There's something there that provides this really, really nice oriental vibe, and that is probably not that's probably not the what they were probably aiming for, or having someone on the internet say, but I think that is there. There is definitely something salty, sweet, caramelly, soya saucy, kind of like spicy, warm, fruity about this. There's definitely something going on. It's almost, I'm not sure if you've ever had this, but have you tried what is it, fried bananas with soy sauce? I had that in a fusion restaurant once, and it was delicious. And it's something like that. There's something going on which is super appealing with the scent and the flavor, but the way it just disappeared. You know what it is? It goes from being this kind of like dish, this smell of a dish in the glass, to actually kind of like taste it. I know it doesn't kind of make sense, but it tastes like a really nice oriental meal. And I think that could just be my Indian palate, growing up with spices and sauces and various other condiments and, you know, peppers and all this kind of stuff that that my mother would have jars of, and then, you know, she would make her spices on a Sunday and roast them up and grind them down and all that sort of stuff, and then we'd eat a meal with these freshly ground spices. I think my tongue has gone down that road. There is spice, there is warmth, but it's not overwhelming. It's very sippable as it is. It's making the back of my tongue, back of my mouth water. There's an energy in there. It's stimulating. The taste doesn't hang around too long, as in like, it's not overbearing, overpowering, but you can still taste it on the back of your tongue. You can taste this kind of like nice spicy stimulation. It's like it is, the more I try it, the more I drink it, the picture that I get in my head, the vibe that it's kicking off is this kind of like, you know, sweet soya saucy, kind of like slightly chili flaked condiment. It's very interesting, and I'm really enjoying it. It's very tropical. There's definitely a tropical note. The sweetness comes from the from some tropical edge, which could be, you know, pineapple. There's something going on here which is very, very interesting. And like I always say, we're not looking to read the label and go, it tastes like this, and this is the one you should find, and if you can't, your tongue is broken. No, we're not doing that. What we're doing is going, what do you taste? What do you taste? Are you enjoying it at all? What do you think about it? And I think this could be the first Whiskey Wednesday where I finished the whole thing in one sitting. It's lovely. I'm really enjoying this. There's, you know, all sorts going on. I think the more I drink it, the more I'm going to discover. I would highly recommend that if you can obtain one of these, and we have a couple in stock because I managed to get them, you know, I've got contacts, I would grab one. Very reasonable point of entry, and you can, you know, if you buy two, which I suggest in this case, if you are a collector, buy one to enjoy, buy one to drink, and you know, you're only going to see some good things happen. Now, that said, I'd really like to know what your thoughts are on Glenturret. If you have had the previous legacy range, or if you've tried the new Maiden release, what do you think of the 12-year-old? Or have you tried the others yet? Because I'm still yet to get to them. So I've got the triple wood, I've got the 50, I've got the 25, all these ones that we're gonna try them together. But I'd really like to know what your thoughts are. That said, have you been trying some whiskey while watching this? Are you having a drink? What are you drinking at the moment? Again, let me know. That said, what do you think of my hair? I'm growing my hair out, growing my beard out, mustache is coming along, and outside of that, what a great Whiskey Wednesday this is. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a good one. Don't forget, subscribe. One of my videos has had 40,000 views. If you all subscribed, I'll be making more videos, seriously. But if you're not in the mood of subscribing, just give the video a like, and please leave a comment below. And if you are so compelled, share this video with your friends. It just does me, you know, it just helps me out. That said, have a wonderful weekend. I think it's Fragrance Friday. Have a wonderful week, and I hope that you get a chance to enjoy this as much as I have. And I was gonna mix water in it. I know you're wondering. I'm not gonna bother. This is great as it is. So have a good one, guys and girls. I'll see you again. Bye bye.